your bigger problem won't be to find a property. Your bigger problem will be that you just got duped out of $4,000 to $7,000, and now have to start back from scratch, right? All right, let's get right to it. Episode 79 of KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Ariel Kormendy. He's Adrian Trott. Today's topic is going to be rental scams.
How are you today, by the way?
I'm very good. What did you have for breakfast today?
I had oatmeal. Just
like
oatmeal. Yeah, just something simple. I'm trying to eat healthier. I had a shake for lunch. Trying to cut out some carbs.
Nothing went in the oatmeal?
Well, I put a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of maple syrup, but not much. And milk.
Right.
Yeah. Gets me going. Holds me over to lunch. Gives me the energy I need for the morning. I probably could have used a snack in between, but whatever. I managed. Now I've had my shake.
See, what I've learned now, especially being at home and having ample groceries at home, is snacking. So this morning I had 2 hard-boiled eggs with a couple pieces of cheddar cheese. Just drizzled the eggs with a bit of olive oil, some salt and pepper, really basic. And then as a snack, mid-morning for me was 9 o'clock, 9:30. I had some blueberries with some walnuts and some pumpkin seeds. And then for lunch, I had a penne alla vodka, which was left over from a couple of nights ago. And I think I'm on probably my 6th or 7th glass of water. So trying to stay really hydrated. I think that's key. Not all days are this good though. Like, you talk about trying to stay healthy, and it's super hard in this time, right? Like last night, I showed you the other day, I got my box from the Carnivore Club.
Yeah.
Full of beautiful artisan salamis and I mean, just absolute deliciousness. And as you know, I'm a big fan of charcuterie. So the last 2 nights I've been making myself some charcuterie plates and washing it down with a glass of wine. One of my favorite things.
Yes, I think I would be, if it weren't for quarantine, I would probably join you.
Yeah. Well, maybe I can throw a salami out the window for you.
That sounds good.
One of the pepperoni sticks. I'm really impressed, and I don't know if you watched that video, but their packaging is phenomenal, and they're really sourcing some. It seems like there's some good stuff. It was my first time with that subscription, and I find it difficult to source that kind of unique and a little bit rarer charcuterie stuff, like the meats, right?
Yeah. Especially right now, like it's hard you can't really order that
right
online. Yeah.
So it's $40 plus tax and shipping. So it came to like $52 delivered. And it's more expensive because I didn't sign up on the subscription, but I was super impressed. So I balanced the healthy to, offset the not so healthy. Right?
Well, you have to treat yourself. One thing I learned is you have to treat yourself. So I find dieting never really works, but having just a healthy balance is important. And you have to give in at times and have something. Otherwise, you're going to binge and just stuff your face with something and completely reverse everything you've accomplished by eating healthy. So
that's why so many diets fail too, right? And so many so many
where
people,
they work and then you go on this program and you lose weight and then you get off and then you're done.
Well, it's like isogenics. I love isogenics and the program, and you shed some bad fat and you feel great, but afterwards you're so friggin' hungry. You just start devouring things, and your body wants to get back all these fats and store it, and then you end up putting on more weight because your body's like, oh, I don't want to go through that shit again.
Yeah, and I did one of those 5-day. It wasn't isogenics, but it was actually, maybe it was. I don't remember. It was a while ago. But it was one of those 5-day shake cleanse things, and it was not enjoyable whatsoever. I mean, after about 3 days, I was getting used to it. I wasn't as hungry, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't look forward to the things I was eating. So I find those things that are just terrible, and I need something where I look forward to it.
So I don't want to talk too much about anything else except for rental scams today, because there's been a lot of publications lately, and a lot of discussions lately, and on both sides of the equation, not just landlords being duped, we'll say, but also tenants being duped. So it goes both ways when it comes to rental properties right now. And I think there's a lot that the public needs to be aware of and has a lot of questions about. So maybe we can chat a little bit about those and our experiences and our best practices to help people be more aware and let people know what's going on. So for those of you that don't know what's happening from a tenant perspective, there are a lot of fake ads and a lot of properties being offered online for rent that aren't actually owned by the people that are offering it. And the ads themselves, while they're accurate in the sense that there's somebody behind it, they aren't accurate in the sense that you'll actually get to move into the place. You'll potentially be out of pocket thousands of dollars, lots of time, and you get duped. And then from the landlord perspective, there are a lot of professional tenants out there right now. Recently, there was a man who was convicted. James Reagon is his name, and it's been widely published. Convicted of fraud.
Toronto's professional tenant, they refer to him as.
Yeah, most recently trying to rent property in Oakville, and he's been living rent-free for years and years now because of the way that he knows how to manipulate the system. So
I tell you, if I had a tenant like that, I don't care what the landlord-tenant rules are. I'd be in there with a baseball bat.
Yeah, well, I think for some people that it has to go to extremes. I mean, that kind of extreme will end you up in jail. But it's a lot of there's a lot of that going on. Like, let's be honest. There's a lot of landlords that are getting tenants into their properties that haven't been vetted properly, and or a professional tenant that knows how you're going to vet them and then has the loopholes around it to make you see smoke and mirrors, and then they move in and you're disappointed that you're not getting paid, and you can't do much to get them out, and the process and everything that goes on behind the scenes is
the question with this guy is
difficult.
How is he applying? Is he using fake ID? Because his name is everywhere for the last few years. How is someone foolish enough not to Google his name and look him up? Because you will find pages of articles written about him. And, obviously that's not even a red flag. It's just a do not consider period. So it seems like a simple thing, although perhaps he's providing fake ID with fake names, which, if you ask for enough supporting documents, it's hard to really make up a fake identity that's truly believable. So it would be interesting to know. I'd have to read more into it to see how he managed to get to be considered and accepted as a new tenant.
Yeah. So maybe let's talk about that process of how somebody could alleviate that issue. Like, what, as a landlord, if you haven't, well, obviously, first of all, the first most effective way of mitigating potential loss like that and sourcing a good tenant would be to hire a good realtor, because that's what they do for a living. But let's just say you're a landlord doing it on your own, and even tips for realtors that are watching and that follow us.
Well, here's the problem when we talk about real estate agents. Just really quick, I don't want to get too off topic, but a lot of real estate agents won't. It's not that they don't understand how to do it; it's that they don't see the value in it because they don't get paid much, and oftentimes it costs us money more than we're getting paid to complete a lease especially when we're representing the landlord. So a lot of people will just shortcut it because they don't really see that they're getting paid enough to put the extra effort into it, and they won't perform the client interview. They won't do their due diligence and calling references or digging.
So here's
into
the thing.
tenants.
I mean, if you are hiring a realtor and you have a place to lease, you should do your own due diligence on the realtor to make sure that you're hiring the right person. And it's no different than selling a home, right? You get what you pay for, and hiring the right person. Now, leases, there's not much more than a 1 month rent charge that most realtors will charge, right? I mean, maybe there's virtual staging or additional services, but really to put the property up on the market for rent, our standard is 1 month rent. So the variance in cost is not going to be that much, but the variance in service potentially could be significant. So let's break it down for people. Let's break down some of this process to help them not, or hopefully not, get a tenant that is a professional, quote unquote, professional tenant, one that's going to potentially screw them over. What any tips and advice you got for people listening?
Oh, it's funny because I had just yesterday, someone reached out to me, a referral from an existing client of ours that we've completed multiple transactions with. And this person that was referred to us by them has a property that they wanted assistance releasing out to a new tenant because their existing tenant's moving at the end of the month. The current tenant hasn't paid rent in a couple of months, also claiming it was due to financial hardships caused by COVID-19 and everything that's going on. So they were hoping to get some assistance because in the past they did it by themselves, but now they don't want to go into the house. They don't want to deal with putting themselves in a position of risk with regards to the virus. So she's trying to find a realtor to help her and put themselves at risk. So, but now one thing she feels like she maybe didn't choose the best person, and had she have done some more research, perhaps she wouldn't be in this position where this person isn't able to pay. I mean, these are extreme situations where you can't always predict someone's financial capabilities when all of a sudden the economy goes to shit and nobody's got a job. But there are things you can look for. And, obviously you want to collect as much supporting data and documents as you can. One red flag to look out for: if someone's not willing to provide you with things, don't even give them a second thought. Just move on, find the next person. Even if your place has been on, one thing I think people do often is they might get desperate. If the place has been on the market for 3 weeks, they're 1 or 2 months carrying costs out of their pockets so far. They just want somebody in there, and maybe they shortcut the system and they don't do their due diligence to find the right person. Huge mistake.
Yeah, they get impatient.
Absolutely. And I suspect that people like this guy, professional tenants, they look for properties that have been on the market for a while because they know that these landlords, which are more often than not just people that probably took out a line of credit to buy the house, and they're now carrying the house on that line of credit as well, and they know they're going to be desperate. So maybe
I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, properties could be on the market because the landlord are too picky. So
yeah, I've had that too.
Yeah, you certainly have.
But anyway, so documentation, that's the first thing, obviously collecting all the documents. So it could vary from one person to another depending on their circumstances. I mean, if they're paid traditionally as an employee, then obviously recent pay stubs, and recent being the most recent pay period. A pay pay stub from a month ago doesn't tell you that they're actively getting paid and employed. Nor does a current pay stub. They could have just got fired yesterday, but it gives you a little bit more reassurance and decreases the likelihood of that happening. So pay stubs, if there's...
I always ask for an employment letter.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the person, contact details of the person that wrote the letter. And I always send an email to that person, thanking them for providing it and just confirming that the employment status is still valid.
Yeah,
and
I do that too.
I always get a response. And that's the first and foremost, right? Like if somebody has solid long-term employment and you've validated...
Make sure it's a legit email though, because if it's hr@gmail.com, it may just be going straight to the tenant.
Well, that's a good point. And, if you're in an industry such as an example, if you're a plumber and you work for a small kind of mom and pop shop kind of plumbing business, you might be working for somebody that only has 2 or 3 employees and does everything on his own or her own and has a Gmail account. You got to be super cautious. And the one thing that a landlord definitely should do is research everything. And Google and Facebook and, social media can be your best friend when it comes to digging into the dirt, so to speak. Now, a professional tenant will already have that all set up. Like a lot of them do have separate Facebook profiles for the people that they're going to put as a reference and friends of theirs that, are getting paid on the side to just say, oh, yep, he's great or whatever. So you got to be super, super cautious, right? Like anything can be forged nowadays too. So documents like pay stubs, you can easily put in Adobe Acrobat and change a few numbers and a few digits and add a logo and you're good to go. So you got to be super, super cautious that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a big difference.
Now, if you're a tenant, so the big thing lately has been people going on to reliable sites, but sites where anybody can post products or services. So areas like Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, Craigslist.
Hang on, are we done with the landlord stuff?
Well, those were two of the biggest tips. I mean, we can't give away
one big one. One big one, sure we can. One big one that I like to do, and I don't know how easy, if at all possible, would be for someone who's not on a real estate board, would be I look up the previous addresses. So you get their driver's license, and it would have 1 or 2 previous addresses on their credit report too. You look up those addresses, and you can on the real estate boards pull up any previous transactions, so you can find if it was publicly listed for lease when they became the tenant. Then you can see that listing. You can see who the listing agent was. You can see who the agent was who represented them at the time, and then you can call them. More often than not, the realtor that helped them at the time is not the same one that's helping them this time. So you can reach out to these people as references too. Perhaps the landlord's realtor at that time was involved throughout the process and kept in touch and knows whether or not they were in fact good tenants. And I've had it happen before where they vouched for them and they said that they were excellent tenants. And this is sometimes. Oh my goodness, my phone's calling. Somebody's calling me. Can you hear me?
Your phone's calling?
My phone's calling. I gotta put this.
Your phone.
Gotta put this on.
Your phone. You're on a podcast.
It kicks me out of the app. I thought maybe I lost you. I'm just gonna put it in airplane mode. Oh, there we go. Airplane. There we go.
What are you, new? Come on.
Anyways, so that's helped me a lot before. I've got some really good feedback on people. Especially like there was one tenant we found for one of our clients, and it was somebody that was very questionable. They had very, very low income. They were on financial support from the local municipality, and the income wasn't that high. But we were able to connect with previous realtors that were involved, and they all spoke very, very highly of this person. And so far, she's turned out to be a phenomenal tenant. So now you may move on.
Yeah, income isn't as important. I mean, as long as there's enough income to pay the bills, obviously.
Yes.
But it's not a good indicator as to whether or not that person is going to be a good tenant.
No, and I know many people that make, a shit ton of money, but they're not financially responsible. And I know people that make next to nothing, but they're very responsible and have far better credit.
Yeah. The other thing, then, we didn't really talk about it from the landlord vetting the tenant perspective, is having a chat with that tenant and talking to them either virtually or... Why are you smirking?
Nothing. Alicia's over here doing something, trying to make me laugh.
Oh, she flashing you?
No.
Giving you the old...
No, I would not be looking at the screen if that were the case.
Right. Did you want me to flash you? Keep you interested?
That will keep me looking at the screen, yes.
So having a conversation with that tenant, right? Like, I don't care if you do it by phone, virtually, in person, whatever. I think now more and more people will do it electronically in some capacity. But just having a chat, like if you have a Zoom chat or a FaceTime with that person, and verbally verifying some of the stuff that they've provided to you, and just having a chat, like, who's going to be moving into the house? Is it just you? Do you have any children? How old are your children? What school are they going to attend? How long have you been at your job? What do you like about your job? Who do you report to? And asking the questions to make sure that everything on their rental application is coming out of their mouth nice and fluidly. Because if somebody's telling the truth, the answers will be immediate, without hesitations, right?
Yeah.
If you've got somebody that stops and thinks about how long they've been at their job and gives you the wrong answer, you might think twice about double checking and verifying facts. So having a conversation with that person, and because even if that person is represented with a realtor, let's face it, there are realtors representing tenants out there where the realtor hasn't done their proper job or a job of really qualifying that person and getting to know them. Because we'll get a call and somebody will say, hi, I was referred to you, can't remember by who, but somebody, a friend of mine, told me that you guys do a great job, and I need to find a place to rent. And for a lot of real estate agents in North America, the answer is, okay, let's see what we can find you. And then they go out and see some properties. And once they find something they like, then the documents are collected. And so there's no real vetting process there. Our team is a little bit different. We have a little different process where that's all done in advance and we get to know these people a little bit first, but that's not always the process, right? So even though they're being represented by a realtor, don't mistake the fact that you still need to do a deep dive into making sure that everything is kosher, so to speak.
Yeah. It's funny because not too long ago, I wrote for the KT Property Management blog, I wrote one with regards to, very much similar to our conversation, things you can do to minimize your risk and increase the chances of finding a good tenant. And one of the steps was the in-person interview. I think that's, or the interview. I think that's a huge component of it, and something you should never skip. And in there, I specifically wrote that although times are changing and virtual interviews will be more feasible and more likely considered in the future, but right now, at that time, that in-person interviews are hard to beat because you can have, a more accurate representation of them based on mannerisms and how they act in person and stuff like that. But I think now all of a sudden that's changed. I don't think I'll ever do an in-person interview again.
No, I don't think I would either. And I'll tell you, one benefit of not doing it in person is you can strategically set it up when they're at home. And like right now, I can see that, your basement has some nice stuff. It's nice and clean with the exception of the unpainted damage on the wall.
How do I'm trying to point to it. Right.
Yeah. Right. But especially if the people are on the phone or whatever, but even with the computer, you're just turning your screen and you can look at anywhere in the house to see the condition and how they keep their home.
Well,
right?
I would go as far as asking them for a tour. If there was, if there was any question, if they had a pet and they wanted to sell me on us accepting them with the dog or whatever, then I would say, take me on a tour. And I would do it like unexpectedly. I'd be like, hey, we're going to have a Zoom meeting in 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And, or you call them to talk about the application and say, yeah, I'm going to Zoom you in 5-10 minutes and let's continue this conversation virtually.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a real key now going forward. And that benefits both parties, right? Because as a tenant, you really want to have a good landlord, especially if they're not being represented by a KT property management type of company. You really want to make sure that they are somebody that's going to look after your needs as a tenant, right? Like, what if something goes wrong in the house? Do you want somebody that you can't get a hold of, right? If a pipe bursts in the home, or in our rental property, the fridge was leaking. If you can't get a hold of somebody, you're potentially without a fridge for, who knows, maybe you have to call the repairman and get it done yourself and then chase down the landlord for that money, or have to withhold it from your rent, and then you're not paying your rent in full, which poses a whole other problem.
Yeah.
So you gotta make sure that you've got a good landlord. So this type of meeting is mutually beneficial.
Well, I know of tenants where they were renting places that they found afterwards were infested with mold, and the landlords didn't care. In fact, the landlords likely knew, and they wouldn't do anything about it because they didn't care about the person; they just cared about the income. So you definitely need someone that actually cares about who's coming in. And wants to have that mutually beneficial and friendly relationship.
Well, that's it. It's having a good mutual relationship. So as an example with our, and I'll use our property as an example on Brassard, we have good tenants. They've been in there since October. They're really looking after the place. They're treating it as their own. They love the home. They love the area. And, they're paying good money for rent. And without them asking, we took the initiative of giving them a discount on the rent last month and this month, or I guess this month and next month, because we wanted to help them out. And, it's a time where we need the money and we certainly need to cover our expenses, but so do they. And it's more important for us to have tenants that are not going to create us thousands of dollars of damage in the home when they leave. And it might be more cost effective to, reward people that are treating the property well. And, with their lease is going to come due in October. So a few months from now, and I'm pretty confident they'll stick around and they'll treat the place well for a long period of time. So you have to have that mutual relationship.
Yeah, and there's little things you can do like there. That's one of them. Given the circumstances, I think that was a great decision for us to do, and I'm sure it was well received and appreciated. When they moved in, they both came from condos, so I left them with my lawnmower and grass trimmer. So that was another little courtesy we did.
Which you may have regretted.
Yeah, and now
last month.
Yeah, so now I have to go and buy new stuff because I stopped having it done. But I'm excited about the new stuff. It's all ready to go. So that not only is that just as a little favor or whatever, little gift, I suppose, but it encourages them to take care of the lawn, which is in our best interest because we want to make sure the grass is well maintained. So there's a lot of things you can do. Oh, and when they moved in, we gave them a nice introductory package.
Yeah, nice welcome home gift. Yeah. We also left a barbecue there for them to use. So little touches like that go a long way, and people appreciate it, and it doesn't go unnoticed.
No,
right? Especially when people move out of homes, you want them to move out in a courteous fashion as well, whether it's wall damage or cleanliness or just taking their crap with them, or not taking things that they shouldn't be taking, stuff like that. So that goes a long way. Now, okay, let's talk about tenants getting duped.
Yeah.
So what's been happening on Kijiji, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, those are the predominant areas, are scammers are taking existing real estate listings that are for sale and turning them into lease posts on those forums, on those classified areas, and they're even meeting people in front of the house, and they're saying things like, well, the house is currently tenanted, so we can't go in, but here's the house if you want it. Here are the pictures of the inside of the house. And they're taking deposits and giving move-in dates. And when people show up to move in, it's...
Can you imagine that? Not only have you now lost 2 months of rent, which could be easily $4,000 to $7,000, you've also now got nowhere to live, right? Like you've given your notice at the previous place.
And now you're back at square one.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a hotel now.
It financially would probably be devastating for most people, because imagine now you have to pay 4 months rent up front. Not a lot of people have that as savings, and when you're renting, oftentimes you're budgeting on a month-to-month basis, and especially if you've got a young family or you're single, and it could be any circumstance. Nobody wants to be out of pocket 4 months of rent right up front, especially if you're not getting anything for it.
Exactly.
So that, to me, is one of the biggest advantages of hiring a realtor. And I don't want to talk too much about that because, I'm not trying to sell service here, but when you hire a realtor, they'll have the back-end systems to double check who's the owner and, do the proper vetting that way as well. Your deposits for first and last month rent, if the property is represented by a brokerage as well, ends up going into a trust account where it's managed properly and governed accordingly. So it's not just handing cash off to some dude that pockets it and says, okay, I'll see you here on the first with the keys.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I've had people call me saying that they were trying to get a place to rent, and this person who claimed to be a realtor, which may or may not be true, was insisting that in order for them to consider their application, they had to include with the application the deposit check. And they swore up and down it was a real estate agent, and I looked them up and they appeared to be, but it just seemed like the most strange thing ever. And I would definitely encourage anybody, never give anyone a penny until all the paperwork has been signed.
Yeah, I mean, there might be circumstances if there's a property listed on MLS and it's a super rare or super nice place and it's priced really well and it's hard to find. that if it goes into a multiple offer situation, which does happen often on leases, that you might want to come up with the deposit ahead of time or with the offer. So it's an offer that has a deposit upon or herewith, as opposed to upon acceptance. But in that case, the bank draft or the certified check is going to be made payable to the brokerage.
That's right.
So at least there is a fail-safe there, right? You're not making it out to Adrian Trott, you're making it out to Century 21 Miller.
Yeah, well, that's the other area where the story didn't really align and left out, which is important, is it wasn't made out to a brokerage. I don't remember who it was being made out to, but it was not being made out to a brokerage.
Yeah, it's not that hard to find a rental property, okay? I mean, yes, supply is low and it can be difficult throughout different times of the year, but you should never feel like you have to jump on something when it's not totally in check, right? Like if something seems too good to be true, or if something seems a little fishy, just walk away from it. Like don't even go there, because you're going to run into problems. So your bigger problem won't be to find a property. Your bigger problem will be that you just got duped out of $4,000 to $7,000 and now have to start back from scratch, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing as a tenant that you can do is, or that you'll want to do, no matter who, if it's the landlord representing themselves, or if the landlord is represented by a brokerage, you want to do your own due diligence on the landlord too. So Google that person and that person's email address or phone number, go on to Facebook and LinkedIn, check out what that person does, and have a conversation with them, that virtual conversation. So you can ask them questions too, like, okay, so if something goes wrong with this house, do I call you directly? Am I calling your cell phone? Where do you live? How accessible are you going to be if there's a problem? How willing are you to allow me to make changes in the home if I want to paint, or if I want to hang my artwork? If I want to plant tomatoes in the backyard, is that okay? Ask questions, and make sure that you're not getting any surprises.
Yeah. Well, it's a risky business. There's a lot at stake financially, emotionally, but there's a lot of very easy steps you can take to minimize your risk on both ends. So it's just a matter of slowing down, familiarizing yourself with the process, understanding what the process is and what you can do to protect yourself, and acting on it.
And don't be naive.
Yeah,
that's the big thing for both parties, for landlords and tenants. Don't be naive. There are people that will be looking to scam you, and there's a lot of it happening. And you need to be aware. You need to be educated. You need to protect yourself. And so that's the message for this episode: is don't be naive. Don't think that everybody's so nice out there.
Yeah. Agreed.
So that's it for today, my friend. Get a little bit off topic from business. How's life treating you? We're now in 9 weeks. We are into week 9.
I'm going a bit crazy. I got to tell you. Yeah. Especially with the warmer weather coming, it's going to be weird not going out, sitting on a patio, having a drink. I'll be able to get out on my motorcycle, which is nice. I can isolate on my bike. But yeah, it'll be tough. We'll probably spend a lot of time in the backyard, I suppose. But imagine people in condos, especially condos with no balconies, they're going to go stir crazy.
Well, even if you have balconies, how far is the distance?
Yeah.
Right. And even in the backyard, right? Like you could potentially be 2 feet away from somebody.
Well, in our backyards, I think there's maybe 4-foot radius in the center that we can stay within.
Yeah. Well, it's true.
To maintain that distance.
I mean, my backyard is surrounded by, well, you posted something on Insta the other day. We have trees and cedars all around. So I've got about a 3-foot buffer to the fence. But, I don't know if one of the neighbors are up against their fence, right? Like the other day, the other side of us, they were outside playing and whatever. And their little boy was actually coming up to the fence and knocking on the fence. And then, Natalie had to pull away from the fence a little bit because we still want to maintain that social distancing, right? So you got to even be careful in your own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think is going to happen is that people are going to get super antsy with the nice warm weather and just start freewheeling, like going out and even if you go for a walk, okay? If you go for a walk, you're going to pass people on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So if you pass somebody on the sidewalk and they just sneezed three steps behind you or 3 steps in front of you, you got a chance of catching whatever they have, if they have something, right? Like it's mitigating that exposure. And so I think that might be a problem, but I don't know. In 3 weeks from now, it sounds like things are going to start being loosened up a little bit. And
they're starting tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow?
Yeah, Thursday. They're announcing phase 1.
Yeah. So, phase 1, phase 2, I think is June 2nd or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm certainly looking forward to getting out of my basement office. I think I mentioned it a couple of days ago to you. I have no natural light in here, really. I mean, that one small window isn't providing anything. And I stay in this confines of this 10 by, I don't even know if it's 10 feet wide, maybe 9 by 8 room, right? Like it's a small little room in the basement, and it's lonely.
Yeah.
And
I don't have a formal office in this. I decided in this basement not to do that. So we've got a bedroom for guests because we have out of town family visit regularly, normally. And then I've got the rest of it all open. So I don't feel so confined. I don't mind it that much. I've got a bathroom right here. If I need to jump up to take a pee, I can do that quickly. And then behind me here, I'll crank some tunes on my nice stereo, and I don't mind it down here. Zero natural light. I built it that way because it's nice and dark in here for movies. But whatever. I'm a bit of a homebody, so I've done quite well. I enjoy spending time at home, but I'm getting antsy, and the warmer weather will amplify that. So that's... Yeah,
and I think, you think about going out for ice cream with the kids, right?
Yeah.
Like going to the park and playing around in the splash pad and things like that. So, the first few weeks, like you, I love being at home, and I've enjoyed, being around the kids a little bit more, and
we've had enough.
Just not having
enough.
Well, not having to drive anywhere for the first few weeks was nice.
Yeah.
But I am so ready to get out into the car and go on an appointment, take clients out to see some properties and things like that. But I don't want to rush it because you don't spend 9 weeks in isolation and then just go throw it all out the window because you get fed up. So my message to everybody is still stay home and status quo until it's really safe. Don't risk anything at this point.
Yeah.
Are you cooking dinner these days, or is your wife still making dinner most nights?
50-50. 50, yeah. Maybe 60-40. I'm 40. I've been doing less cooking. I don't know, when I cook, I like to, I probably, like, if I were to say, okay, I'm going to cook, I feel like cooking something, I usually have to go to the store to get some sort of ingredient for it. So right now, like for me, cooking's not as much fun because in most cases, I don't have everything I need to make what I want. So having more relatively basic meals, because I can't just pop out to grab some rosemary. I've got, the dry stuff, but not quite the same.
I think that's big part of the planning. Like I'm the opposite. So for Mother's Day, Natalie wanted my penne alla vodka, and I decided I'm going to make it from bare bones scratch, like to the point where I blanched my own tomatoes and crushed them by hand and cooked down the sauce for hours and made an Alfredo and made a vodka sauce and did the whole thing step by step. And it took me hours upon hours to do it all. And so I knew I was making that dish, and I made sure I ordered all the things I needed in advance. And I think Instacart has been great for that. I signed up to their free delivery, whatever they call Instacart Express plan, for I think $10 a month. And they often have same day deliveries. So if I'm preparing in the morning and I go, oh shit, I don't have any rosemary, I'll throw that onto Instacart with a few other groceries that I know need topping up, like maybe milk and eggs and something else. And they deliver it. So I think there's ways around that if you really feel motivated to do it.
True. Now you have removed all obstacles and excuses. So
there are no excuses, my friend, no excuses. Although I did get jealous because I think for Mother's Day you grilled up some nice steaks.
Oh, they were delicious. Yeah, I got them from Woodward Meats in Oakville. I think generally they typically only sell to restaurants and commercial businesses, but given the circumstances, they've opened up to the public. So they have some great product. They were a handful of things, and the steaks were great. I just started with the cheaper steaks they had, which are AAA fillets. In the fillet line, they had 2 or 3 options, and they were great. I got 8-ounce steaks for $115 or something, $125. Worked out to be like $15 a steak. And they were big. I swear they're more than 8 ounces. They are big steaks. Really good, though. Super tender.
Yeah, if you were buying that in a supermarket, you'd probably pay at least that.
Yeah,
so,
I suspect so.
And not the same quality.
Exactly. So I think it was worth it.
But what I was jealous of is your barbecue.
Oh, I love my barbecue.
Because I can hear the sear and the smell. And my barbecue now, may it slowly rest in peace, is 14 years old, 15 years old.
You got your money's worth.
It's a Napoleon.
Yeah,
it's a Napoleon. I had it fully serviced once, but
I remember that the guy came to the house in like a fucking hazmat suit.
Oh yeah,
that was crazy,
and took it all apart and had his rotary tools out to take off any rust and any grime and all that, and it looked like brand new.
Yeah.
But that was now, I don't know, about 5 years ago. And now, I mean, being a 14-year-old barbecue, it's done. It's served me well, and it's time to upgrade. So I've been looking aggressively now at buying a new barbecue. I kind of want charcoal.
I would have charcoal, but I
think you got to have both.
That's exactly.
I think you got to have both.
Yeah.
And my good friend Steve Foliato, and he's actually got 3. He's got a propane barbecue, he's got a Blackstone flat grill, and then he's got his Traeger smoker. And so he can really do all kinds of different cooking.
I think smokers are gaining a lot more popularity right now.
Oh man, I've wanted a big green egg for the longest time, and that's a definite consideration for me. But the large size, which we'll need as a family of 4 that eats a lot, is $2,000.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and that's not including really any accessories other than the little. They're like little shelves on the side, so you can put your food on and whatnot. $2,000 plus tax, plus delivery, plus like right now, I would pay somebody to deliver and put it together and all that, and just drop it off in the backyard kind of thing.
Wow.
So you're talking $2,500. Holy crap, right? And then you still don't have a propane tank or a propane grill, which you need, because anything charcoal related, you need time, and sometimes you don't have time. Now I got lots of time. I can sit out in my backyard, take my laptop out there, sit out there for a couple of hours with a piece of pork, and we're good. But a couple of months from now, when I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and I got to run home and throw a couple of things on the barbecue and have a quick dinner, you need a propane grill.
Yeah.
So I'm jealous of your Weber. I wish I would have bought it a couple of years ago, but hey, we got a nice one at the cottage. So if we're still in lockdown up there, if we're still in lockdown, I'll be doing these podcasts with you from my Muskoka room. Okay,
your Wi-Fi is good up there.
The Wi-Fi is actually better at the cottage I think, because there's less encumbrances. And less there's not much to the cottage too, so there's less interference. So it's actually pretty good. It's better there than it is on the second floor of my house here.
Story of everyone's life. Anyway, thanks for listening. Yeah. That was episode 79.
Episode 79.
Hey, listen, if you got this far in the podcast, do us a big favor. If you're on YouTube, click the like button. It helps with Google's fancy algorithms, gives us some more exposure. Really
give us a thumbs up.
I really appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up. Thanks for listening. Episode 79, Keep Tea Confidential. Stay tuned, subscribe, and you'll hear a week from now, next Monday, another episode.
And we're going to have a guest, and I'm going to keep it a secret.
From me?
Maybe.
Okay. All right, guys. Have a great day. See you later.
Bye.